Hello my friends, what's up? It is Paige and welcome back to my channel for today's video. I'm literally so excited to dive in today. I'm literally so excited to dive in. I can't talk, I'm so excited. I am so excited to dive into today's video because I am going to talk to you guys about these zodiac signs, but as Harry Potter characters. If you don't know already, I actually have an Instagram account where I dive into astrological observations and just the energies of the zodiac signs and basically show the spectrum of development through, you know, the different conscious displays of the characteristics of these zodiac signs. So if you're interested in that, check it out. It's at Catalyst Healer. But basically going off the momentum of that account, I wanted to make a visual thing for you guys to really understand the energies of these zodiac signs because we all have every zodiac sign in our chart. That's the fun part about astrology. We all have all the planets. We all have all the zodiac signs. We all have all the houses. But all those same ingredients are put together in different ways to create the unique version of you. And that's what astrology really tugs at, you know, seeing specific energies play out in different combinations and with different strengths in different people. Like, that is the coolest part about astrology. But if you don't really understand these energies and how they actually present themselves within humans, it's kind of hard to really ground the idea of astrology, which is kind of what you see people have issues with. So I figured I would do my due diligence to help you guys out with that. So if you are interested in this video or just informative videos about astrology, tarot, metaphysics in general, make sure you subscribe to this channel and of course give this video a thumbs up because you're a homie and that's what homies do. Disclaimer right away though, as I always say, what I say about the zodiac signs is my observation of it. Astrology and specifically energies are extremely interpretable, so people are going to have different perspectives and interpretations of them. That also being said, you are not just your sun sign. Like I said, you are just a big manifested mess of all of the energies in your own specific ways, so try not to hyper identify with any specific energy and actually be open to realizing that you can use all of these to your advantage if you are consciously aware of the fact that this is still your energy, even though you don't consciously identify with it, if that makes sense. And lastly, I just also want to say that there may be, in fact, actual birthdays for these characters, but I didn't look into them. I don't really care because this is my world on my YouTube channel and I just do what I want. But real quick, if you guys are interested in learning more specifics about your zodiac sign, tarot, astrology, metaphysics, literally anything like that, check out my Patreon account where I make a bunch of videos, writings, and answer your specific questions all about this kind of stuff. So genuinely, if you're serious about learning this kind of stuff, I would highly recommend it because it is pretty awesome. I love my Patreon peeps. So that being said, let's just dive right into this and start with Harry Potter himself. Harry James Potter. This dude has to be a Scorpio. And this is where I think people might get a little confused because people like to pin Scorpio as this evil type energy. You know, these are the people that are commonly just associated with being like psychopaths. But hear me out because that's really not the truth. And you look at astrology and the actual energy of Scorpio. You see people that actually attract a lot of hard situations that literally destroy them inside and out, honestly. Like, they go through transformations like crazy. And if that's not Harry Potter in essence, I don't know what is. Like, he's not trying to stumble upon these things. And most Scorpio energies, like, they're not consciously trying to stumble upon, you know, these transformative events. It's just part of who they are and who they identify with, you know, just unconsciously most of the time. That's just kind of their framework of who they're built up with, which if in Harry's case, you can see that like from his starting moments of life, that has been the case. So with Harry, you see that he also has a weird savior mentality, and that is something you definitely see with Scorpios too. Which is funny because you think of Scorpios as being a little bit more ruthless and reserved, but they're a fixed sign. They're a fixed water sign. Water being relationships, fixed relationships, you know, that energy. They're gonna basically, Harry's gonna stay and solve the situation. And you see that through the whole series. You see this man who just decides that he's going to be the one to fix the problem of evil in the world, basically. And like, that is not necessarily something that he wanted to do, but he does take responsibility for it, which is a very Scorpio thing. Like, Scorpio finds its personal power through taking responsibility for things that actually are outside of yourself. Like, you distinguish what you can control and what you can't control. And if you notice with Harry's energy comparative to other people, he decides that something isn't a lost cause, like, you know, defeating Voldemort, when in reality, like, everybody else was like, don't even say his name, like, we're afraid. But like, Scorpio's like, I live in taboo. Like, my whole life has been taboo for me. I lived in a fucking cupboard, for God's sake, you know, like, taboo is my middle name. And Harry Potter uses that energy to kind of take himself out of his own situations and transform it into something that works for him, which, you know, he's had to. He's got dealt pretty rough cards. And with Scorpio energy, you find that, like I said, these people stumble into a lot of tough situations that are meant to kind of pressurize them and really get them sure of themselves on a spiritual level, honestly, is where this comes in, which you see, obviously, like I said, through the character development of Harry Potter, him just really expanding his version of self through these terrible events that, you know, have a lot to do with death. They have a lot to do with, like, there's a lot of, like, sexual undertones in Harry Potter that I think people miss out on, but that is a thing as well. And you also see, too, with Harry Potter that he has very, like, I don't know, he's big mad, like, a lot of the show, and like it's such an undertone, and that's why I say Scorpio, is because, like, he comes off to be a pretty sweet, loving, intense person, but, you know, under the surface, like, the reason he's doing any of this is because he has some fucking resentment. Like, he is big mad, y'all. Harry has, I mean, every reason to be big mad, you know, all the people that he's ever loved seem to just, like, you know, be sacrificed for him, is how I think he sees it. And I think that's a big Scorpio thing too, is they tend to take hyper responsibility for other people's emotions and other people's like situations and problems sometimes. So with Harry Potter, you know, a lot of the time he's just minding his own business, and then all of a sudden, you know, he is just swept away into situations that call for him to dramatically change and, you know, actually exercise this darker side of him, which Scorpio energy, especially in personal placements like your big three, or even, you know, Venus and Mars as well, any personal planets in Scorpio is really asking for you to exercise and learn to channel and cultivate your Martial or Plutonian energy. So that is definitely what you see in Harry Potter throughout the series, and the way that he learns to cultivate his power. And, you know, by the end of this series, spoiler, he ends up throwing the Elder Wand, aka a symbol of complete power and control. He literally throws it away, like breaks it and throws it into the abyss. That shows the development of Scorpio throughout the series, because he's able to come out realizing that his own decision, his own, you know, emotional safety now has provided him with enough power that he doesn't need external power and control to cultivate that. So that is interesting character look into Harry Potter, but let's dive into someone less intense, which would be Ron Weasley. Okay, Ron is definitely a Cancer. First of all, he's such a mama's boy, and any Cancer man specifically I know is a mama's boy. Even if he doesn't want to admit it, I don't care. He's a mama's boy. And it's interesting because he complains a lot. Like, honestly, no shade to Cancers, but you guys just are emotional. I mean, you're ruled by the moon. So you see things and you're just like, do I have to? Like, you really just want to avoid conflict. And as you see from Ron many times, he's like, why? Like, why do I have to do all this? Which, I get it. Here's the thing. He is willing to fight and protect the people he loves, and especially his family, which is such Cancer energy. Cancer really wants to uphold family traditions and values. Again, even if this is unconscious, you know, that is something that they are so strongly rooted in, and they just feel so strongly about that. It's like, that is where they move from. And as you see from, you know, the Weasley family literally being the main family that you see in this show in general, in this movie, in this series, I should say, in general, that really shows Cancer and energy, because it's really the only place that you can call home and where you get that home kind of energy. I think it's just interesting how you see Ron in a very emotional light a lot of the time. Like, he really has the most mood swings out of all of the characters, so it almost shows, you know, the complexities that everybody else is trying to ignore, because Harry and Hermione are definitely more reserved, but Ron honestly keeps it really real and you know, shows everybody else's emotions much more readily than I think they are. And, you know, it pins him as being the more emotional one, but honestly, he's just being real. Like, for example, like when they're around all those spiders, you really think that it wouldn't be a normal human emotion to be completely petrified by that? Like, I get it. Like, I understand. And even more so with Ron, you see him jealous, you see him angry, you see him greedy, you see him lovey-dovey. Like, you see the full spectrum of emotions with Ron Weasley, and that is why I pin him with Cancer energy. All right, next let's get into Hermione. My girl is obviously a Virgo, and if anybody has anything other to say than her being a Virgo, like, no, absolutely not. She is the most self-possessed woman in this entire show. I mean, she's literally in love with Ron. Like, they're in love with each other, yet she still remains bound to herself and bound to the goal that they have set for themselves. And that, to me, is just such a Virgo thing. It hurts. She's obviously super brainy, and like I said, she's reserved. And I think it's kind of funny because Leo, Scorpio, and Cancer would all get along well with each other just based on their positive aspects within the chart. So the three of them, I can see that being a really good combination of people because, you know, you see Ron actually leaving the situation, I think, in either the first Deathly Hallows or maybe the second one. I think it's the first one, though. Which honestly is a very Cancer thing to do when they're in their emotions. They just need to retreat for a second. But then you have, you know, that Scorpio energy of Harry and the Virgo energy of Hermione, who are, you know, they're holding everything back. They're still feeling super intense things, but they're like, we have a mission and we are going to continue doing the mission. And, you know, Ron eventually comes back, you know, after the wave passes, and he gets this intuitive insight, honestly, which is very Cancerian of him. But like I said, going back into the Virgo energy that you see with Hermione, she is so driven and so focused on her goal that she almost is so serious most of the time and like has a hard time letting loose, which is can be a very Virgo thing at times. One thing I love about Hermione too is that most of the time when she's speaking to people, it's because she's correcting them or is just making it known that what they're saying actually isn't very objective or very accurate. You know, she's all about precision. Like, for example, in Half-Blooded Prince, they're trying to make that potion and Harry tells her to crush it and she says, no, it says to cut. Like, you know, she's precise. She is doing it by the book because it says to do it like that. And it's, you know, her try-hardness really comes out and shows her perfectionism. Honestly, her using the time travel is such a good representation of the way that Virgos mutate, you know, manifested reality and do the most with it. You know, she goes back and literally can reflect on certain moments and shift them around or do things, you know, in the most perfect fashion because she can do this do-over and in a way that is very Virgo energy, because when they, you know, go back for self-reflection and they work on refining their character and their self, that is very similar energy that you see to the Time Turner. It has the same purpose of, you know, correction and getting things in the perfect order, I would say. So that is very interesting that she seems to be the character that has that wisdom. Honestly, that's also very Capricorn energy too, like playing with time like that. So who knows how that works out? She could have a little Capricorn in her too. I wouldn't be that surprised, honestly. Those are very similar energies like that. But that leads me into a little darker energy, which you'll be surprised to know that we're talking about Draco as a Leo. Now, this is where I think people would probably get confused because literally if you think of Leo, you think of Leo, Lion, Gryffindor, Harry. You know, that's kind of where my brain would go. And then Draco, Slytherin, Scorpio, Snake, you know, that kind of energy. That's kind of where your brain takes it. But you see such interesting contrast between Draco and Harry Potter the entire time. Throughout the entire series, you know, he is constantly in competition with him. And it is so brash and so egotistical, though, that the way he goes about it. However, Harry is also coming from a very similar place, you know. There's plenty of times where he willingly gets involved with Draco, you know, when he cuts them all up and everything like that. I mean, he had a reason, you know, he thought he was doing something good, which most of the time Scorpio energy is going to want to consider what they're doing to be good and like justified. But the thing about Draco's Leo energy is it's rooted in daddy issues. He has toxic masculinity AF, as we've seen. You know, he's hella self-righteous, and these are obviously the more negative traits of Leo. But, you know, on the positive spectrum, early on, you see this loyalty that shines out of Draco to his family and to entertaining something that he's passionate in and that he believes in, you know, even if it's not necessarily his beliefs, which is what the issue comes out to be when his family, you know, ends up pulling away from everything at the end. But you see, I don't know, just more direct energy, you know. Draco shines very brightly in the eyes of everybody around him. When he's going through things and he's in like this really dark place in the later episodes, you know, he still has people that are like, what are you talking about? Like, why? Like, you know, they're still very interested in him, even though he's coming from a very dark place, which is something I talk a lot about Leo, actually, is that no matter what a Leo is going through or what they're feeling, they have their heart on their sleeve. I mean, Leo energy is the heart. So it's like, no matter what you do, you're showcasing and expressing your heart's energy. And throughout Draco's time, you see Draco having a really cold heart because, I mean, like I said, he's got daddy issues. But it's funny because he remains to have purity within him throughout the series by him having to step away so many times. Like, for example, he was unable to kill Dumbledore, and that shows that no matter how far he was pushed into the darkness, he still remained pure at his core. Like, he could not get himself to do it, even though he played the role, and that's a very Leo thing, you know, playing the role, showcasing some type of bigger energy, a larger than life kind of character, only, you know, for him to actually be very pure and childlike in his core. Like, he knew that he couldn't do that, but you know, things thankfully worked out for him in his favor in that time, and he was able to like snake away from it. I think the biggest thing here is that he wanted so badly to be, you know, everything that his dad wanted him to be, and that he saw that Harry Potter was kind of emulating in a way, you know, in a very backwards way. I don't know if Draco would actually admit to this, but that's definitely something you see here. He feels like he is pushed to do certain things by like a collective group, which, you know, the shadow side of Leo would be Aquarius, which Aquarius rules like organizations, groups, and that's a lot of what you see with Draco. He is literally pushed to shine light on this dark energy, which, like I said, he eventually escapes and, you know, tries to resolve this energy within him, but it's only after you see the fall of not only his father and his mother, but of actually Harry himself. So it's very interesting to see the development of Draco, because he does come back to his purity by the end of the entire series. So that's very telling of, you know, a Leo's tale and a Leo's energy. This energy is meant to purify itself, even if that is, you know, the final steps that it takes. That leads me into Aquarius, which we have a couple Aquariuses we're going to talk about, and that would be Dumbledore first and foremost. And that is because he just expects you to know what's going on, and that's just such an Aquarius thing. I've talked about this actually on my Patreon video that I did on all the zodiac signs, but Aquarius is genuinely the type of person to walk into a room and just be like, yeah, I know what's going on. I know all the people here. Like, we're friends. Even if you didn't actually like talk to them and get to know them. Like, they have such an observer point of view that it's like they don't really need to have that intimate connection in order to like get it. Like, there's a click that already happens in an Aquarius's brain, if that makes sense, without it actually needing to physically happen, which can cause some issues, as you might see from the progression of Dumbledore throughout the series and Harry's image of him. Because if you notice in the show, by the end, he starts losing a little faith, and even it's shown by what other people say to him by saying, did you even know this man at all, boy? Like, I mean, Dumbledore stays as an idea a lot of the time in not only Harry's head, but in everybody's head. He's kind of out of touch with, you know, those emotional connections with other people, and he simply just kind of offers people information. Now, there is a bit of self-righteousness that you see here again, opposing that Leo energy, which also has self-righteousness in it. You see this a little bit less, you know, overbearing, but at the same time, it's still very obvious that this man doesn't think anybody else's plan is, you know, appropriate. Like, he's like, literally just follow my lead, I got it. Like, and that's good, that's fine and dandy, but at the same time, I think Dumbledore, or just Aquarius energy in general, could be a little bit more compassionate, a little bit more like giving with intimacy or like information in general, you know, and that's not really in their nature. And that's what you see with Dumbledore, is that he comes from a place that it wants power, it wants control, it wants energy like that, but it's not so willing to openly show that, you know, because there is a greater cause that they're using that energy for. So it's like, you know, it's not specifically what they're going for, but like that's, and you know, ultimately what it ends up being. And if they don't confront that part of them that is kind of, you know, power hungry and a little controlling, it builds some weird issues you can see, which is like what I say about Dumbledore. Like, I love Dumbledore, but like I said, as an idea, but when you look at actually what he has done and how he has kind of treated relationships with other people within the Harry Potter world, you're like, this guy is not the kind of dude that I'd want to be like friends with, you know? Like, he just, yeah. And not to say that Aquarius is like someone you don't want to be friends with, but in the sense of his detachment, which is really an Aquarian quality, you know? I mean, they are the water bearer, aka they give other people emotions from a detached space. So they'll give you that like information that, you know, gives you a perspective on something that may be really intensely emotional, but at the same time, like I said, you know, to be like close and have all these people like depend on Dumbledore did create a lot of weird issues that I think Dumbledore like just didn't really address because everything was like for a greater cause, you know. So I think on a personal level he causes a lot of conflict, and that's why I say like he wouldn't want to be friends, but that's only one level of Aquarius, so don't take it personally, okay? And I'm just gonna say, I feel like Dolores Umbridge is an Aquarius. A lot of the time also you see her having this detached feeling of like, I need to teach you a lesson, and that's a very Aquarian kind of energy too. But she's also very Aquarian in the sense that she has a lot of these ideals, a lot of these rules that aren't extremely practical, and that can be a very Aquarian thing because it is the ideal, it is our hopes and dreams, and you know, as an idea those are fine, but when you try to manifest something physically, you know, there's constraints that takes on. And as you see from all the rules that she puts down with these ideals of how she thinks things should be, you see there being a lot of internal distress that she creates and a lot of like ruthless expression that she attracts out of that. Like the Weasley brothers prank, for example, like that was a good lash out to this detached energy where it's like, we can't be this serious all the time, we can't hit this ideal all the time. So, you know, like I said, opposing Aquarius energy is that Leo, so Leo is like the party where it's like, no, we're gonna like shine, and we're gonna shine in our purest form, and I don't care what your ideal says because boom, and that's literally what happens. So, but the Aquarian energy is also a very good natural leader for the reason that they have this higher knowledge, this higher understanding of, you know, how things can work together in a way that helps multiple people or helps a whole system in general. So keep that in mind. You know, Dumbledore and Umbridge use that in completely different ways, as you can tell. So there you go. But now we are going to move into Taurus energy, which I have two people for this one as well. Some of these were hard to just decide just one. And so for Taurus, I want to talk about Slughorn and Snape because they both are very Taurus-y. So not only are they potions masters, but Taurus compares and assigns values to things, and you can very clearly see that, at least with Slughorn. He is so, I mean, obviously, you know, the first encounter that we have with Slughorn is Dumbledore going and saying, like, this man wants to collect you, you need to let him. And literally, like, that is so Taurus. Like, he's so possessive and sees things as valuable and is like, I must have this. Now, you also see this unravel with Snape as well, but in a different way of more so focusing on loyalty. Like, he is so loyal to his love interest of Lily that he's literally protecting her son, even though he like kind of hates him. Like, he resents him at the same time. And that's something that you see here too, is that they're loyal, but they're also kind of fake because they are loyal to their own desires and their own values. Now, like I said, he is very loyal to Lily, but he's not very loyal to Harry Potter. Like, he fucks up Harry Potter multiple times within the show, you know, mentally, physically even. Like, he really gets to Harry. So it's like you kind of have to see through like the initial fakeness to see the actual loyalty that, you know, Slughorn or even Snape has. Slughorn, though, like I said, he portrays it a lot more openly, I feel like. Now, again, both Snape and Slughorn have a lot of knowledge to share. Like, they only will share it, though, with people that they see as worthy. Like, that's why, you know, Slughorn has those, like, fancy parties to see, like, you know, who's worthy. Or Snape, you know, is clearly selective over certain people and, you know, favors their energy and whatnot. So that is very Taurus energy. I actually just posted on my Instagram account how Taurus has very materialistic desires, but they're rooted in, you know, fulfilling what they deem as like a long-term investment, you know, something that will bring long-term value into their lives. And that is definitely something that you see here, even though they're both a little evil and a little snaky, which again, you know, with Slughorn, that's not overtly apparent to you, but you can see it through, you know, his interactions and connections with Tom Riddle. So it's like, it's a weird energy because Taurus is like, people see Taurus as like cuddly and like lazy and the foodies, but it's like, this energy is actually, you know, it's opposite of Scorpio. So it shares that energy in almost like an inside out way. So you see a lot more stability presented on the outside, but like the internal darkness is completely there, and they utilize it to kind of attract and magnetize the things that they want out of life, you know, and that align with their very sturdy and stable values and desires. You know, they do that throughout selecting, you know, what is worthy and what is not worthy. And you see that very frequently throughout this show. Next, we will dive into Gemini, but this is just like, I think they made this on purpose. Like, Fred and George are obviously the Geminis. I mean, first of all, Gemini is the twins, and Fred and George are twins. Like, okay, they had to have made this based on the Gemini archetype. There's no literal way that they couldn't have done it like that. I think it's so specific. It's so specific. For one, they're tricksters. They are literally always pulling pranks. They own a place that, like, has a bunch of, like, pranky things, you know, I don't know what it's called. It's like their own little emporium or whatever of like tricks basically. And that is just such a Gemini thing. And Gemini is dual consciousness. It's learning. And you see so often, you know, the Mercury energy of Gemini come out with Fred and George in their commentary always to each other, you know. Fred doesn't talk without George 90% of the time. Like, there is always this back and forth, which is Gemini energy. Like, Gemini just wants someone to bounce an idea off of, and what better to do that with than a twin. You also see them pushing the limits a lot, which, like I said, you know, Gemini, Mercury energy, that is very on the threshold. It wants to kind of, you know, see what it can do. Gemini is the energy that is willing to learn, so they were willing to push the boundaries, like for saying like the Goblet of Fire, where they tried to put their name in and it didn't end up working, and they got, you know, pranked back to them. And I feel like that is a very Gemini thing. They have to kind of learn karma in that way, but it's all been fun and games for them for the most part. Like, you just see them laughing and having that light, upbeat energy no matter what happens. I mean, even when one of the twins gets their ear blown off, you see them like making a joke about it. And I think that is just so characteristic of Gemini energy. Like I said, it keeps it lighthearted. It is always trying to learn and gain perspective and show perspective also too. And, you know, in relation to Ron being a Cancer and them being Geminis, it's very funny because those energies don't really get along together. And I don't know, you just see like the relationship that Ron has with his brothers is a lot more him being more somber and moody, where the twins are definitely more like, come on Ron, like what are you doing? Like, we're making jokes and having fun, like what's your problem kind of thing. So they definitely provide the comedic relief that you are looking for in this series. But on top of that though, the Gemini energy of being able to learn and push the boundaries and, you know, create things that, you know, get people talking, which you see a lot in this series, you know, from the things that they do. They have a lot of people that are just interested in what they have to say and what they bring to the table, the ideas that they have as well. You also see them being quick and dexterous and very like witty as well, which are all very Gemini characteristics. Next, we are going to dive into Aries, and we are assigning this to Dobby, the house elf. Have you seen the temperament on this guy? Have you really just paid attention to Dobby? He literally snapped a cake on a lady's head to troll Harry out of going to school. That is just such an Aries conclusion to make. Like, first of all, like, out of everything you could have done, and that's what you do. I also tried to drop a chandelier on, you know, Bellatrix Estrange and Hermione and claim that it was to severely maim, not kill. I mean, that's just an Aries mentality, you know? Like, he is so youthful for the elves that you see, especially, you know, like Creature. Like, that guy is so mean and so old and just not having it. And then you have Dobby, who is like very childlike and very, yeah, I mean, childlike is the best word for it, honestly. And Aries being the individual, being, you know, a childlike energy, honestly. Somebody who is really just going to assert themselves, and that's the way that they learn. You know, they just do it and then they're like, oop, I can't do that. Also, the energy of Dobby is just like incredible. Like, I just think of when he's first introduced into the series and you see him just like making all the noise in the cupboard and stuff. Like, that is just so Aries because it's Mars energy. You know, he's always moving, he's always making himself known because it's a cardinal sign too. So it's like cardinal Mars fire. Like, he's like literally just trying to stir things up basically, and you see him do that so often, but also coming in clutch. Like, he ends up, you know, saving everybody and literally taking a knife for everybody because he is a warrior. Like, he does what he knows he needs to do in order to protect Harry Potter, which is so Aries. You know, he's sacrificing himself as, you know, somebody to help somebody that he cares about. And that is, you know, the Aries Libra axis. When Aries understands that there is something to be done for, you know, somebody that they love and care about, they'll do it. And they'll take the actions and strive towards the things that, you know, they think will do it, which, you know, ultimately can be a little impulsive, which you see with Dobby, like I said, from what he's done. but his energy is very characteristic that of Aries, you know, of being very bold and spontaneous, but also being so driven to help a situation and not only help it, but like get it going in the route that it needs to go. Now, he's not always the best communicator. He does kind of just say things like, he goes like, oh my God, I shouldn't have said that. But then it's like, yeah, but like, I don't know. He's just kind of a troll. He really just embodies this energy of like somebody who's really just trying their best to do what they feel like they're supposed to do. And that is the epitome of Aries, honestly. Next, let's talk about Sagittarius and why Hagrid is the best example of a Sagittarius. Now, here's the thing that's interesting about Sagittarius in this day and age is that we just have a full-on generation of people with Pluto in Sagittarius, which gives things a completely different spice than what you may understand Sagittarius energy is. So moving the Pluto out of it, you can see Sagittarius as being a very jovial energy that is not really looking to take super amounts of responsibility, to say the least. Like, they are going to turn the other cheek and follow the path that is best for them because they're just learning lessons and doing what they want to do. Here's the thing though, is that Hagrid is jolly even when shit hits the fan. Like, he's like, oh shit, like I mean, don't get me wrong, he expresses his emotions in, you know, all of their layers, you know. However, even when he's upset and sad, you still see him just be very jovial in his energy. I mean, the way that he cries over Aragog dying and just wails like a baby is so Sagittarius. Like, it's bold, it's out there, and he's expressing still with like this jolliness within him, and that's a very interesting trait. What's also interesting is that he's also very stern. Like, he has room for other people to have their truths, and he, because of this, can handle multiple types of people. I mean, you see him having, you know, really darker people coming into his little area and chilling, and him working with darker energies in general to, you know, get certain things done. But at the same time, it's almost like he lives in his own fantasy land where he's almost so aware of all of the different experiences and ways that people live that he's like, no, I just do my own thing. Like, I'm just going to get a dragon this weekend. Don't worry about me. And the thing that I find funny about Sagittarius is that right behind Sagittarius, so in their blind spot, in their, you know, in their unconscious, is Scorpio energy, is that dark energy. So it's like really intriguing because you see Hagrid literally, you know, booted right up to the forest, in the Forbidden Forest, and there, I guess, him being so closely connected to this darker energy, but still, you know, choosing to choose a different path and different perspective. And like I said, I mean, he really be jetting off to different lands, to foreign lands, to get different things that he finds cool, and that is so Sagittarius, if you ask me. So plus, a big Sagittarius energy kind of vibe that you get from him is the fact that he's willing to kind of fool people in order to keep things going in the way that he believes they should go. You know, like, although he does talk and, you know, have to deal with a lot of different personalities and different energies and kind of play almost a mediator role, he really is, you know, true to Harry and true to, you know, Dumbledore and those, you know, good vibes, if you want to put it in that way. You know, like, he stays true to the things that he believes in, and that is a very Sagittarius energy. Next, we will dive into Pisces energy. This is very Sirius Black and also Luna, but more Sirius Black we'll dive into. Luna, I guess, she portrays the very obvious qualities of Pisces being very lackadaisical, very out there, kind of like in her own head. Like, she's very go with the flow, and she's very peaceful and just kind of like, but like at the same time, she knows a lot. She also gives off kind of Aquarian vibes too. But Luna, as a character, I feel like she doesn't have a lot of depth, or at least doesn't show it, and that is a very Piscean thing too. Well, I should say Pisces have a lot of depth, but they normally don't show it readily. They just kind of come off as being like maybe a little ditzy, or like I said, a lackadaisical is probably the best word to put it. But anyways, diving more into Pisces as Sirius Black, you see that he is really hard to like pin down, like to have and to hold is not a Sirius Black thing. I mean, most of the time when Harry is interacting with him, you see him as being someone that is coming through messages or through the fire, or he is just transformed from his dog, like, you know, character or whatever. So you see that he gets really wrapped up in these like intense dramatic movements, and that's a Pisces thing too. Like, because he is so elusive, you know, that Piscean energy wants to merge and be a part of everything. It's really difficult, I think, for him to step back and be like, I don't have to be this involved in it. Like, you know, his entire energy is wrapped up in, you know, fixing this whole thing with Lord Voldemort and like the dark energies in general. But at the same time, he doesn't confront, I think, his own darker energies a lot of the time. And that's like his avoidance is almost like, let me take care of everything else and be involved in everything else and avoid my own messiness sometimes. He is just kind of a lot sometimes, though, I feel like is like another Pisces thing that Pisces energy doesn't know this about themselves a lot of the time. Because they're so reserved, they don't understand how much they can be just because they try to merge. And, you know, other people aren't always open to, like, noticing that energy. But you can see how much, like, for example, Harry being a Scorpio, being really, in tune with undertones, is so entangled by Sirius Black. Like, he literally can't stop thinking about him and almost makes the situations more messy because he is so tied to him and emotionally feels connected to him because he does represent, you know, his past. And Pisces energy is a karmic give back. It's going to show you what you need and what you've been looking for in other people, I find, or in situations in general, which may not necessarily be what you want to find, but it'll be what you need, you know, like I said, it's a karmic give back. So it's like whatever you put out there is what you're going to get back. And I feel like with Sirius Black, you know, he almost showed Harry this part of himself that was really willing to just submit himself to this entire cause and dedicate himself to something bigger, you know, no matter what the consequences were. Because as you see from Sirius Black, he is constantly running from consequences and avoiding the blame game that I guess is kind of being put on him for, you know, whatever reason, which Pisces is interesting because all they can really do to help themselves is just kind of stand up and be like, no, this is who I actually am. But you never really see that with Sirius Black's character, and I think that's really interesting. But that's where it's funny because you see that with Luna, actually. And I think maybe it's the last series, or the last part. I think it's in part 2 where Luna actually is chasing after Harry Potter to tell him, you know, this insight that she gets. And, you know, being Pisces energy, they do get a lot of kind of out of the blue insights that may not make a lot of sense to other people. And that's kind of why you see Harry ignoring her at that point, where she literally has to yell and be like, Harry Potter, stop where you are right now. I have something to tell you and you're going to freaking listen. And that is the character development of Pisces, where I feel like Luna kind of fulfills that Piscean character development, I guess, where she stands up and is like, you know what, no, I have prophetic information to give to you right now, which literally helps the whole situation. So that is a very interesting dynamic of Pisces that you see within the Harry Potter show. The Harry Potter show. I keep saying show or episode or whatever, it's the Harry, the Harry Potter stuff. Next up, we got Capricorn, which we are putting that with Neville Longbottom. You know why? Because he's doing this for his damn self. Because he ain't got nobody else. And that is Capricorn AF. No, I'm serious. I know so many Capricorn people, or just Capricorn energies, when I see it, it's always the area where you didn't really get the support that you thought you needed, and that's because Capricorn is the energy of karma. It's lessons, it's restrictions, it's delays, and, you know, with Neville, you see with both of his parents not being there, and honestly, with his character development, you see him not only be restricted in the sense of not having those figures to really grow up with or to or like pay attention to in that aspect. You see him throughout the series trying to decide, is he worthy enough to be the person that he thinks like the situation calls for. And a lot of the time, with Capricorn energy, you see people underestimating themselves because, like I said, this is the energy of delays and karma and really getting your lessons right so you can, work off of a stable foundation. Capricorn is very foundational energy. So you see Neville's progression amazingly throughout this series. He starts off being the kid that needs help and needs, saving, and being the person that ends up literally saving the day for everybody. He kills Nagini, he kills the snake, so he's like able to unleash his full potential and really like unlock this part of him that was actually determined and actually really loyal to a specific cause that he unknowingly worked up to and like worked throughout the series to get to that point where he could actually like save people. On contrast, you see him actually saving Hermione and Ron from this snake. So that shows that Capricorn energy of really, you're doing things for yourself, but at the same time, that what you're doing for yourself is ultimately going to provide a foundation that can save other people because you're like stable. You're coming from a place that's like providing for the world. And that's Capricorn energy. It's 10th house, it's Saturn, it's public image, the public energy that you give off, your kind of success and fulfillment in life, your purpose. So you see this type of energy come out of Neville, very slowly. And that's Capricorn energy too. It needs to kind of cultivate over time. It needs to learn the lesson that it is worthy and that it is strong enough to do what it needs to do before it's actually going to like, perform its task. But as you see here, Neville like finds his glory. He equates himself to being the one that can do what he needs to do, and he does it, and thus, he saves a lot of people. And I find that that's a very Capricorn-y intention. Like, they want to be the savior, they want to be the one who is the most solid and the most sure of themselves, but they are willing to honor, the time that it takes and the practice that it may take to get there. And you see that throughout the way Neville steps into his role and into this person who is able to defeat, Voldemort, literally. And last but not least, we have McGonagall being a Libra. Obviously, she's a Libra. I feel like somebody should make Harry Potter tarot cards just so you can have McGonagall as the Justice, because the lady is completely a Libra. She's got that Queen of Swords type energy, if you're familiar with tarot. Like, she is going to say what she needs to say. She's so cut and dry and almost like cold, but you can tell that she's very fair. Like, she knows what she's doing. I mean, even by the way that she has treated Harry Potter, knowing who he is and knowing the significant impact that she's had to like shift things around to kind of get him to the place he needs to be, you see her being very, very giving yet objective. And it's like, it's a very interesting energy with McGonagall being this Libra. But she really wants to be this person that is fair. Like I said, at the beginning, you really see her almost being harder on Harry, always keeping it real with Harry, even in the later episodes when he has a free period and she's just like, you look like you're having too much fun. Like, why don't you go take potions class? Like, that is a very Libra thing, being the devil's advocate. A lot of the time also, you see her energy paired with another person. She's like the assistant to the headmaster, whatever like McGonagall's role actually is. I don't really know. She plays that role though of being like the sidekick to, Dumbledore a lot of the time. And I think that is a very Libra energy too. This is energy of the other. So Libra is going to be more comfortable being like a counterpart to another person's energy and being the person to either mediate their energy or to further distribute and make sure that the energy that they want to be put out is being put out, if that makes sense. For example, a lot of the time you see McGonagall just roaming the halls and being kind of like, I don't know, she gives like vice president vibes or like vice principal vibes, like the one that's going to be the disciplinarian kind of thing. And actually, I think she is the disciplinarian in some circumstances. So, I mean, that makes sense. But she is very good with her words. I think the things that she does end up saying throughout the entire Potter show end up being very impactful things that kind of help Harry and other people steer their directions to causes that are a little bit bigger than themselves and having to work out their issues too. Like what you see in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone when they send, you know, Harry and Draco out into the Forbidden Forest. That shows the energy of being the mediator where she sees both sides and she's like, yeah, I mean, you guys are both in the wrong, so you're both gonna go deal with it. And that is very Libra. They try to keep that balanced mindset, even though you don't always see that, because I find that if you pay attention throughout the series, you can see little hints of her, you know, favoring certain things, and that's also Libra energy, you know? At first glance, it's like, oh, this is objective. Like, this seems very fair and like, you know, they're just here for everybody to get along. But you see that McGonagall definitely has a specific motive in mind and is, you know, trying to push her own MO, which happens to be wrapped up with what Dumbledore is doing. So you can kind of see here with Libra energy how it almost needs to feed off of like another idea or be inspired by another idea for it to understand where it asserts itself within the group. Because while Libra is the energy of other relationships, you know, it's Venus energy, it's also an air sign and it's also a cardinal sign. So it's like pushing itself, asserting its viewpoint, but it's wise in how it does this. And also on top of that, you can see with McGonagall's position a lot of the time within Harry Potter that she is willing to fight for things and be the person that is very, you know, subtly fighting for things. You know, she's the one that puts the shield around Hogwarts, and she does it without really complaining. You know, she knows what her duty is and she just does it. And that's also Libra energy, which is like accommodating for the cause or other people without really giving any complaints, because you just know that that's your role to fulfill. But I believe that wraps up today's video with all of these zodiac signs as Harry Potter characters. So whew, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you stayed till the end of it, oh my god, give me a lightning bolt emoji down in the comments. You guys are homies for real. If you stayed through this long ass video, you rock. But yeah, I'm going to skedaddle. Thank you guys so much for watching and subscribing, liking, you know the gist. Follow me on everything down below. I have Patreon where I dive more and more deep into this kind of stuff, so please check that out if you are interested in learning more. But I will see you guys in a later video. Peace.